Okay. Ready to get started?
Yes.
Let's do this. Hold on, I'm going to redo that again. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, I messed up.
I can't hear anything, so I don't know.
Boom. And we're back, Greg. A new week.
We are back.
What's happening? Sorry, we missed last week, everyone. Sorry about that. It's my fault. Just busy.
Not much. It's okay. We're good to go. No harm, no foul.
Yep.
You ready to rock another episode?
Yes, we're ready to rock one out. A quick one before busy week this week. Weaver Space Conference is coming up next weekend. So really excited about that. And
you didn't have your cheering sound effect cued for that?
Oh, damn. I should have. Oh, well, it's too late now.
Yeah, you got to put that deck to use.
Yeah, I know, man.
Do it in post.
Yeah, there we go. Post. So today, we're going to be talking about backups and what we can do to back up our sites, back up our project files and stuff like that. So that all the amazing work that you guys do, we don't want to make sure that we don't lose any of it, right? So, we're going to talk about backups. So
sounds good.
Yeah. What do you want to talk about first? Want to talk about backing up locally on our machines, backing up our project files and stuff like that? How about that?
Yeah, I think that's a good place to start. You have to have the foundations in place before you do other stuff. And there's definitely an important thing about backups is A, test it, and B, the more you have is not necessarily a bad thing. So, typically you might have one, and we'll get more into this, but you have one locally and one remote, right? So you have multiple backups in case your house burns down and something tragic like that you're still able to recover. So let's dive in. What do you use for yourself for backups? How do you back up?
So obviously I use built-in Time Machine on my Mac. Now I have a Mac Pro, and so I have, some internal drive bays, and I have one 6 terabyte drive that is dedicated purely to Time Machine backups. So, and that's just constantly going all the time. I don't have to dip into it very often, hardly ever, but I do have to say that it has saved my butt a couple times, right? So it's been really, really good. So that's probably my main backup source locally. I do have, I have another external, like a NAS, like a backup NAS that I kind of do routine just backups of important files onto there. So it's kind of like my long-term storage in a NAS. And lastly, I do have an S3 directory. So everything that's at least business related. So like all my products and every, past version and all that stuff is all backed up to S3 right now.
Yeah, I think I have something similar. I use Time Machine because it works so well with the Mac. And if you had to restore your computer, that is probably like the simplest and easiest thing to do. And I also have a NAS box because my wife has a computer and everything like that. So it's significantly easier to back up multiple machines to a NAS, and a NAS stands for network attached storage.
Mm-hmm.
You back up, you said, to S3?
Yeah. So it's kind of like a manual backup process right now. Right. So basically, I use Transmit to, constantly upload all of my stuff, to S3. Now I bought Arc like a year ago, and it can back up to S3, and it can back up to Amazon's other cloud service. I'm drawing a Glacier. Right. But I haven't jumped on that boat in terms of doing like a full blown offsite backup of all that stuff yet. So yeah, for the S3 stuff, it's just kind of pretty much. Well, it's not fully manual. My build process, whenever I do a release, it creates a zip file, and then I just upload that to S3 with some Ruby APIs that I had built locally, and it just uploads all that stuff to S3 for me. So I have a full blown backup of every version of every stack I've ever shipped.
Oh, Joe. Oh, Joe. I use I use Arc Backup too. Arc is great. The developer of Arc actually is local to where I live, to Boston. Really nice guy, really great guy. So if you're checking out his software, definitely support him.
Sweet.
His products are legit, and they're very good.
Yes.
So that's, that covers remote backups, right? And I actually I use it with Google's Drive competitor. You can use Drive, but they also have a service that is like S3. So I actually use it with that instead of
oh, interesting.
what's it? Yeah. It's faster for restores and access and cheaper. Cool. So it's a kind of a win-win.
Sweet. Yeah, I was going to look into, so I set up my dad with Arc and he wanted offsite backups, and we did Arc with Backblaze. Backblaze has a like a service, kind of like Glacier, and it's pretty darn cheap as well. I forget what that's called, but yeah.
Yeah, that's a good one actually. I'm sure a lot of people will get on that, so that's not a bad idea.
Yeah.
And then locally, if I'm doing backups, I also use an app called Super Duper. If I'm doing like a system backup, like a whole system clone. So, Mojave launches soon, so you want to do a whole system backup, fire up Super Duper, save off an complete backup of your system right there, right before you do the upgrade. Not a bad idea. Sweet.
Yep. Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. Mojave's probably coming, I would assume, this month. I would assume. We'll see.
Yeah. If the past has anything to do with it, it was always like end of September, last week of September, right?
Yep. So
we'll get iOS 12 and Mojave to drop with usually new hardware right at the same time. Whenever they ship, whenever those ship, they ship the new updates at the same time.
Yep. So how about like workflows? Do you have a specific workflow in terms of like versioning project files? Like I know a lot of Rapidweaver users, what they do is as they're working on a website, they'll create duplicate of a file and either add a date or a version 24 to it or something like that, right? And it's their easy way of pretty much kind of like creating a fork or something like that of a project, so that they can just save a project at a particular point and then duplicate it and then continue on. What are your thoughts? Do you have a particular workflow around that way?
Interesting. So this is before exporting. You're saying just the Rapidweaver project?
Yeah, this is just the Rapidweaver project itself. Yeah.
Not particularly. I mean, like we do stuff a little bit more technical than the average Rapidweaver user. So, I probably would create a Git fork or I create a new project in Git and start there. It's not a bad. Your suggestion is not a bad starting point either.
It really isn't the best. It's not proper version control, right? I mean, yes,
right.
It is kind of a layman's version control, right? But it fills up your hard disk. It creates a lot of. You don't really, unless you keep notes along with it as well. What is like version 22? Like, I don't know. Like what is version 22? And so yeah, something like I think. Doing a proper version control system is good. I keep it for I have all my project files in a Git repository that I sync up to GitHub, which is actually kind of like another way of doing an offsite backup, right, of all my projects. Because I have a GitHub repository, it has all my project files in it. And then whenever I make any changes to it, I commit those changes and then push those changes up to GitHub. So that is another way that I back up my Rapidweaver project files.
Yeah, cool. I probably would not consider Dropbox a backup solution. Would you?
I know a lot of people would. That's a great debate. But yeah, I don't know. I kind of gave up on Dropbox for a while. I was having some sync issues with them and in packages, especially actually I had some Git repos on a Dropbox and that was just, that was horrible.
So,
That was a mistake. Yeah, I know.
yeah, that was probably not your brightest moment.
No, it wasn't. So yeah, I know some people that I actually still do get repos on a Dropbox, but yeah, I stopped doing that. And yeah, ever since then, I kind of just licked my wounds, and I still have Dropbox for like sharing with particular people. I have shares with them, but I don't really. I stopped paying for them. I still have like 60 gig with them because of all the like the referrals that I got from referring Dropbox early on. So, and I never really never even used anything close to what I was getting with the free 60 gigs that I got from referrals, right? So, yeah, I have Dropbox running, but I don't really actively use it much. I do use iCloud, but similar to the thing, I wouldn't consider iCloud backup. Like that is a syncing service, not necessarily a backup service. Right.
Yeah, I think because of how it handles like Rapidweaver projects and files like that, you could easily get conflicts. And as you said, it's a syncing service.
Why would they have a conflict, Greg? I don't understand.
Because you're editing the file in multiple locations at the same time, maybe.
But if it's just a file, like what's the problem?
Oh man, because Rapidweaver and macOS projects they look for files in a certain format and a certain location with a certain syntax. So if you have the same file edited in multiple locations, who knows what version you get?
Yes,
and you
exactly.
Dropbox adds. What do they do? They say duplicate or something like or copy.
They say,
copy.
Something like that.
Copy. Yeah. So it can completely mess up your Rapidweaver project file.
Yeah, especially because a Rapidweaver project file, people, it's not really a file. Okay, I know in Mac it looks like a pretty file and we see it as a file, but it's not a file. Like it's not like
it's a bundle.
File. It is a bundle, which essentially means it's a folder. Okay, now that folder contains certain files. It contains other folders. It contains plist files and all kinds of other stuff, right? And you could see that let's say I create a project on my computer A, and then on my laptop, I see the project file is there, right? So I think, oh, look, Dropbox synced it, right? But maybe it didn't sync everything inside of it because it is an entire directory full of folders, right? And files. So that's what Greg was talking about, how, it could be dangerous where if you don't really know what you're doing, you could edit something and it not be properly synced, and then you got a corrupt state and all that kind of jazz. So I do have to say I've had really good luck with iCloud syncing right now. I do think that Apple has finally come up with a cloud service that kind of works pretty well now. So I think iCloud Drive works pretty well for me. And that's for syncing. It's not, again, I know we're talking about backups. We kind of got off on this tangent with syncing, and that was my fault. But yeah,
it's a good distinction. It's a really good distinction to make, because some people can just misuse them in different ways, right? You have to use the tools. You have to use the tools as they were designed to be used, right?
Yeah. Yep.
So yeah, keep that in mind next time you throw your Rapidweaver project on Dropbox. Just make sure you zip it up first.
Yep. So yeah, if anyone's interested, shoot me a mail. Shoot us a message if you think something like, if you're interested in like a proper version control thing. I don't know. Maybe we could do a show on that. What do you think, Greg?
Yeah, maybe if people email us, let us know.
Yeah. If you're interested in it's going to be pretty technical, right? But like,
what's the email?
feedback@weaverradio.com. Yeah. We actually got a couple of emails this week, Greg. Did you see that come through?
We did.
Yeah, maybe we can address those towards the end.
Sure, that'd be great.
Sweet.
So all right, so we backed up our systems, and now how do we back up our project files? How do we?
So
is there a way to keep history with our project files, Joe?
Yes, Greg, there is. Inside your project files in the publishing settings, I believe it's in the publishing settings. You can actually, whenever you republish all files, Rapidweaver will publish a full backup of your project file to your server, right? So that is a way, and it publishes the entire thing. And it kind of creates like this encrypted folder name on your on your server so that, not anyone can just guess the name or whatever.
That's not encrypted, Joe. It's random.
It's a random. Yes. Sorry. I said encrypted.
Different.
It is very different.
Very different.
Yes. Very indifferent. It is not encrypted. It is yes, it is a random, a folder of random strings and numbers. A not easily guessable name. How about that?
Okay. I'll give you that one.
So yeah, that whenever you publish it, it also backups the entire project when you hit publish to your server. Now, obviously that is going to lengthen your publish time, right? It's because when you click publish, Rapidweaver is going to publish the changes to your project as well as your website. So again, that will, if you're really in a bind and you may want to make sure that stuff is publishing quicker and you don't want to wait, then well, if you have that backup set, then that's what's going on.
I actually had a user get saved by that feature.
Oh yeah,
just last week.
Cool.
Yeah, just last
What's
week.
The story.
Their computer died, and they kept no backup using any of the tools that any of the tools we mentioned or any other tool. And he just happened to have that setting enabled and was able to pull down his project file and get his site back because. Something that comes up a lot on the forums is that Rapidweaver has no way to import files back into Rapidweaver and recreate a project.
Yes.
And that's very important.
Yes.
It's very important. People, a lot of people think that, surprisingly, and it comes up every now and then on the forums. And I think it's came up every now and then on the forums for years and probably will continue to. There's no way to recover your project file from an exported site.
Correct.
Yes. So, and then I guess on the hosting side, I know a lot of hosts have backups, and I know a lot of hosts charge for backups.
Mm-hmm.
I do not. And something that I'm very bad about advertising, and I just commissioned a designer for a new design for my site, so I have to get better about communicating this. But if you publish a website and you made changes to it, and you need to, accidentally delete a file, delete an image, or something like that from your computer, in your Chili control panel, there's a restore manager that you can go back, and any backups that are available will be listed there, and you can dive into your site and browse through it, pick the file or image from the backup and restore it into your hosting account. The cool thing is you can do it with DNS settings and databases too. So you can, or mail. So if you want to recover an email, you want to recover, say you accidentally deleted this DNS setting or made changes to the database, you can also go back onto those too. So it's a little bit like Time Machine. Not the nice slick UI that you'll get on your desktop and that kind of experience, but the backups that Chili makes are readily available for people to browse and grab stuff off of if push comes to shove, in that event that you made a big boo-boo and you need to try to get back and save some bacon. So, I definitely recommend if I don't know all hosts out there, but I know a lot of them will charge a hefty premium for some of those features. So, check around, do some research, and having that extra kind of layer of protection, because we talked about having multiple ways to do backups.
Yep.
So, check into that, do a little research, and find a solution that works for your budget and your workflow.
Yep. This is especially important, backing up your site if you have, data on your server that isn't potentially in your Rapidweaver project, right? So if it's a database, or maybe you have, a folder of files that, is critical to the site that you've warehoused. If you're using something like Total CMS that has actual data stores on the server, right? So it stores all the CMS data on the server. None of that is on your local machine, right? So all that stuff is actually on your web server. So you're going to want to make sure that you have all that data backed up.
Very true.
Yep.
Good point.
On mine, I do weekly. I think that's probably good enough for me, at least. How often do you recommend doing backups, Greg?
That's a very good question, Joe. Very good. I take daily snapshots on the server. Mm-hmm. So the server is going to take it every day and restore and retain. I think it retains about, I forget right now. I'd have to check, but that's a very good question. I guess it just really depends on how often you're doing and making changes, right?
Mm-hmm.
That's really what it boils down to. So I assume you're not changing your site every day, so you don't need to really take backups every day. So if you're changing your site on a once a week basis, then once a week makes sense, right?
Yep.
I don't change my site that often, so my backups are far more infrequent for my personal stuff. So
exactly.
Yeah. Cool.
Cool.
Any other tips for backups or anything like that you have?
I just want to one little tip for Total CMS users. Total CMS does create backup of all the content. So inside the CMS data folder, I keep 10 versions of like every CMS data entry point. So every text, widget, every image that's uploaded, I keep the last 10 versions of everything. So if your client, is updating, the paragraph on their homepage, and they update it, every time they update it, I create a backup of that and I keep the last 10 versions. I currently don't have a UI for actually restoring the backup. Hopefully in version 2, I'll make the time to build that. But, it has saved some customer skins in the past where their client changed something and they're like, oh no, I don't know what it was before and I need to go back to it. So, it creates all that. And another thing that I know a lot of users use is something like Transmit or Yummy and stuff like that. That basically, they set up like an automator action, like, once a day or, once a week or whatever on a routine basis. They have Transmit, automatically connect to their server and then download it. Transmit is an FTP app by Panic, everyone. We've probably recommended it 100 times already in this podcast. So, you can use your FTP app to connect to the server, pull down your stuff to your local Mac at least, right? So that you have some of that data locally. I think that's a good solution. I think you should always have your host do backups. But something like that, if you want to make sure you have manual backups of stuff from your server, apps like Transmit and Yummy and stuff like that can actually automate that for you.
Yes, that's a good point. Transmit is not a bad idea. Not a bad idea. Good tip. I didn't think of that.
Sweet.
Because you can also mount it as a disk too, right?
Yes, you can. You can mount. Yeah, you can mount your you can FTP and have it mounted as a local disk. That's a good point. That's a great feature of Transmit. I love that feature.
Yes. Cool.
Any other great tips, Greg?
I think the only other one that I'm starting to look into and use for my personal use is a app called Resilio. You said you used it before?
Yeah, I used to use it. So, I have a couple guys on my team and I wanted to have like a team share. And as I said earlier, I used to use Dropbox, but I kind of got off Dropbox. So I was trying to look for, something to have a folder where we all keep it in sync now. And so I used Resilio for a while early, like when they first launched. And for everyone, Resilio used to be basically BitTorrent. It's BitTorrent's commercial. They try to commercialize it and, actually start making money from the BitTorrent technology. And something called Resilio Sync. And it's kind of like an open source. It uses BitTorrent. So the more servers that you have it running on and syncing, kind of like the faster the syncing is, which is interesting. But I do have to say early on, there was some issues syncing Mac packages. So like project files and, stacks and stuff like that. And I have heard they completely rewrote it. I even got emails about it, how the new version was completely redone and they fixed all those issues. And that was a long time ago. But at that point, I had already moved over to, we just use Transmit and S3 right now. And I never went back to Resilio. But it was, I liked the idea of the technology. And if they really have improved it, which I'm sure they have, it's probably a great one.
Well, the nice thing I like about it is A, there's an iPhone app, and B, it's very similar to Dropbox. So you need your file, but your files aren't stored on your machine. Dropbox stores a copy of your files on the machine. And I think Resilio will stream it down when you download it, and you can.
You mean Dropbox stores it on the server?
Dropbox will store both, right?
Yes.
So if you had a 1 gig file on your machine, it would be on your machine, taking up your space on your machine. it would be on their server, obviously, and then other machines you have it on is also on that machine. So it's consuming hard drive space.
Yes.
So if you wanted to clean up your hard drive space, it makes it very difficult.
Yeah.
So I think Resilio has an option not to do that. I'm not really sure. I haven't done it. I'm looking into it for my personal stuff, but
okay.
Yeah. So cool. I think that's all I have, sir.
Yeah, that's really all I got. Want to jump into some of these emails we got this week?
Yes, good point. I almost forgot. Thank you.
Let me search for those.
So the first email I got was from Ryan asking about image compression, and he brought up image alpha. I looked into it, and it's definitely a good find, but the major thing is that it's lossy and not lossless. And we've previously recommended Image Optimum, and Image Optimum will do lossless compression, so the quality will be higher. And Image Optimum can optionally do lossy compression, which would be similar to Image Alpha. And you may get either similar or better compression out of Image Optimum, but it is a nice find. And the cool thing for me with that, which is kind of a little geeky, is that like Image Optimum, it has a command line interface because I want to integrate into some things, but that's beside the point. But good tip. Thanks for the email. But just beware. Just remember to compare your make sure your application is okay with lossy compression, and compare the quality results from Image Optimum to Image Alpha.
Yep. Actually, funny enough, I just went to Image Optimum's homepage, and they have a little warning about Image Alpha and how, exactly what you said. It creates smaller files, but it uses lossy compression. So sweet. So thanks, Ryan. I appreciate you sending that in. That's great. I always appreciate some feedback and some apps that you guys are using as well. So we had one more, right? Oh, and I just clicked out of it. Darn it. The next one was from, oh man, you left the hard one to pronounce for me. Tapio, oh man. Lakonen? Sorry if I completely just butchered that last name, Tapio. Tapio Michael. Well, that's in his signature. It says Tapio Michael, so I can do that one. Okay. So in here he says, absolutely love your show. I was wondering, what would you think of Commander One's FTP and Finder alternative alternative properties? For those who run Android phone aside of OS 10, Commander One's Mount Android feature is tempting, but for $30, it has to offer more than that. I remember that that you talk about some FTP clients might pack extra for transfer, and I wish to play safely. So, have you ever heard of this Commander One FTP, Greg?
I have not. I'm sorry. Have you?
I have never heard of it as well. Before this email, he provided a link to it. And yeah, I have never heard of it. I do know of a lot of dual pane, kind of extra finders. There's an add-on for Finder called Total Finder that I used for years that added tabs into Finder. And ever since, Finder actually has tabs now, I don't really use Total Finder. But I did. Total Finder is still around. I still know people that still use it and love it. So that's one. And another one is Pathfinder. That's kind of like a power user's finder as well. I used to use that one. Again, I don't really use it as well any longer, just because I don't know. I'm okay with Finder now. I don't need anything extra or special. But Total Finder really was cool. It had some some geeky features, like you can easily show all hidden files and stuff like that. Some stuff that is not really too easy to do in Finder. Total Finder is pretty nice. Have you ever used either of those, Total Finder or Pathfinder?
Definitely Total Finder. Total Finder, yes. Used that for years myself and loved it, and used it until OS 10 added tabs, just like you. I found that because it required a kernel extension, I had issues in some versions for a little while, but he's resolved that and moved on. And all good. So if I ever went back, definitely told to find her. It's definitely really nice. It was, I feel like I want to say glory days at this point, but brings back memories.
Yep.
But he also mentioned the need to sync and work with Android in there.
Yeah.
The Android has a Mac file transfer tool that's built into that they offer directly that may work for him.
Yeah.
And I will share it with you, Joe, and you can post in the show notes. So that might just be then open up the options for FTP applications.
Okay, cool. Yeah, great. Yeah, I every now and then I have to plug my Android device into my phone, and I always have to Google around. Yes, the one you just posted to me is the one that I've used. Yes, so there is an official Android file transfer app, and that's what I've used just to get phones or files on my Android device.
Yes,
either that or use something like, I'm sure there's like Dropbox or stuff like that on Android as well, so you can sync via the cloud.
Yep.
Oh, obviously Google Drive, right? My son for school, a lot of his school uses Google Drive and Google Classroom and stuff like that. And so, yeah, he has to get, Google Drive stuff. That's what they all use. So that's a good alternative, especially if you're using Android.
Good tip.
Yeah.
Good tip on that one.
Yep.
Cool. I think that's all the emails we had. Did you have another one?
Nope, that was it. Yeah, we got those 2 this week. So that was nice. So everyone keep those emails coming. I like that. That's fun. Kind of, answering, this last one really wasn't too web related, but I'm cool with that. We're all geeks around here. We all talk we're talking about Mac stuff and whatnot. So, yeah.
Awesome. Well, I think that's all I have for today, Joe.
Sweet, Greg. Well, let's wrap up. Where can people find you on the interwebs?
I am at Barshard on Twitter and Chili Dog Hosting on chilidogsoftware.com. How about you?
Boom. I am at Joe Workman everywhere. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, joeworkman.net. And this week, guys, everyone, Weaver Space Conference coming up. If you haven't registered, head over to rapidweaverconference.com. And hopefully I'll see you this coming up weekend.
And we're having a show at the closing show.
Yes, me and Greg are closing out the conference with a special Weaver Radio episode. So that show will be live for everyone. Even if you're not attending, you'll get a nice overview of the conference. And that'll be fun. So yes. And again, please, if you like the show, head over to iTunes and give us a review. And again, feedback at weaverradio.com if you have any questions or there's topics that you'd like us to talk about. And what did we talk about earlier, Greg? Oh yeah, the Git stuff. So yeah, if you think something like that would be interesting, if you're interested in like real proper version controlling, send us an email or post on the Weaver Space community for Weaver Radio and let us know what you think. And we'd appreciate that. So thanks, Greg. I appreciate you joining up with me on the weekend and us nailing out another episode.
Of course. Anytime, Joe.
Sweet, guys.
Thank you.
Talk to you next week. Bye.
See you soon, sir. Cheers.
Boom.